Yo, Gary Parker here, live from my backyard. Oh wait, it's not live because you're watching this on YouTube, and that's just a picture of my backyard. And this is kind of weird how that zooms in and out. Woo! Anyway, let's do some SVG. Hopefully that's what you're here for. Let me share my screen with you. And okay, so if you're not at this page right there, then look down in the description on YouTube, and there's a link to math.bluecc.edu/SVG. And there is a link to my slideshow, and I am ready to move on over and over and over and over, come on, and over to lines and arcs. So basically, we're going to take a look at paths. We'll start off with arcs. We'll back up to lines, and then the next presentation, go away, zoom. Technical stuff is so fun. We'll take a look at Bezier curves, which I think is like awesomeness. So let's back up. Alrighty, so there's a Mozilla tutorial here that links to the arcs section of the page on paths. You can scroll back to see curves, which I decided to put next in the presentation. And then below that, there's stuff about lines and the path command, and then some other details about the path command. So we're just going to go over the definition of an arc, which is just a chunk of an ellipse, and then we'll just kind of play with it a little bit. So I have two places to get you started, and then you can do whatever you want with those. The first one, and when you click on the image, that takes you to the actual SVG file, which is a lot like a web page. Web browsers know how to display it. And the things I found trickiest about the arc command was what's called the large arc flag and the sweep flag. And those are either set to 0 or 1. Either it's true, it's large, or it's false, it's small. And either the sweep is standard, 0, or the sweep is non-standard, 1. That's the way it's defined. So if you click on the code pen exercise, that takes you to this particular example. And again, this is here to make it interactive so you can do stuff and not just watch me do stuff. I recommend changing the view to the left or right editor layout, but if you like the default one, that's cool too. I did add some CSS just to get this to stand out over here, go away view, but we don't need that. So I'm going to maximize the HTML editor. And I have a little HTML at the top, which is the stuff you're seeing here, and then eventually the SVG thing starts here. So here I set the view box to start at the point -50, -10 for Y, and then be 200 wide by 120 tall, and the width and the height are set to be different. But notice the width and the height definitions are proportional to these two parameters here. Excuse me. So I explain a little bit about the view box, what I just mentioned here. I'll explain a little more, I think in a different recording, because that'll make this too long. What I want to talk about are these arc parameters. So I have 4 paths here, and the paths all have a starting point, which is the same, and then they have the arc. And the only things I'm changing in the arc each time are the large arc flag and the sweep flag over here. And because SVG is stacked, the orange one is underneath the red one, which is underneath the green one, which is underneath the blue one. So if I were to mess with the orange one by changing one of the flags, it would sit underneath one of the others and we won't see anything. So I'm going to tweak the blue one. And the way the arc command works, starting with the A assumes a starting point. If you don't give it one, it picks 0, 0. And then it says, hey, make the X radius 50, make the Y radius 50. Don't rotate the axis for tracing the arc, and then don't do a large arc, and then make the sweep different than normal, which is the 1. And the standard sweep is like from trigonometry, that's the 0 setting. That means trace counterclockwise, and the 1 traces clockwise. So this says from the point 50, 20, pick an X radius and a Y radius, both of 50. Don't rotate the coordinate system. For the tracing part, that that rotation does not affect the points I start and end at, by the way, which is another weird thing, but that's the way it is. And then trace clockwise. So from this point right here, which is 50, 20, pick the small arc and then trace clockwise is what it does. So if I said instead, let's pick a large arc but trace clockwise, which one will I get? Will I get the orange one or the red one? So take a guess, make the change, and then we should see it happen. So it swept clockwise because I left that as a 1. If I switch that and it picked the big arc, if I swept that to counterclockwise, then it will replace the orange one. And then you might wonder, well, why is it set up this way? And the reason is when you think about a path is something you travel through, and you could say you have these points of destination along the way. So what they wanted to do is to get from point A to point B here, how to get from here to here. So instead of like in algebra classes where we say, hey, let's pick a center x value for the ellipse and then an x radius and a y radius for the ellipse, and the rotation's a whole nother thing, right? This instead isn't focused on the center, it's focused on the starting point and the destination. And given a starting point and a destination and some radii, there are 4 possible solutions to that system of equations. And the sweep flags allow you to pick which of those 4 solutions you want to display. And every once in a while, I think about it and I pick the wrong one. Most people do this with software that makes that decision for them. They just decide how to draw it, and then it spits out the code like I have here. But I like playing with the code. I think it's fun. Okay, and if you're watching this, you probably do too. So cool. So play around with that for a moment. All right, next one. So here I have the yin-yang, and this is made up of a circle element, and then the white shape is a path made up of an arc, another semicircle arc, and another semicircle arc, and then I have 2 other circles for the eyes. And so if you open up the code pen exercise, you'll notice, hey, that doesn't look the same. Why not? What I did here, maximize this, is I changed some of the parameters of the white path here. So the outer circle default fill is black, so I didn't type that in. So if I got rid of this whole path here, Control X, then we would just see a black circle, and there's a white dot here, and there's a black one hiding over there. Put that back in, and we see the yin-yang. But we're missing the eyes because I flipped what was going on with these arcs. So what I want you to do is play around. There are 1, 2, 3 arcs that make up the shape from the starting position of x is 0, y is 150 here. It says move to the center, then move over here, and then move back to where I started. Figure out how to switch the flags, large or sweep, to get the yin-yang to look like this right here. So play around with that and have some fun. All right, so one last thing, we'll just do a tiny bit of play. I think I'll pick this one to play with. And I'm going to steal that into another persona of mine here. And it won't save what you do as you edit this. So what you should do is you should sign into CodePen if you want to save your work, and then you should fork this activity. And that'll give you the ability to save what you're doing. So notice the save just jumped up there when I did the fork down here. And I want to, again, switch to the view I want, and then I want to maximize the, oops, wrong button, maximize, come on. Minimize CSS, and I guess I have to do it manually now that I messed it up. Maximize the HTML editor. All right. So I really don't care about the stuff at the top, but you could leave it there. I just want to play around with this right here. So I am going to go after these things, and I'm going to stay in that group. So I'm going to go before that closing G tag there, that G element. And I am going to add a new path here because I just want to explain paths. I'm going to close the path a little bit different. I'm going to close it by going /path. So notice I have an opening path tag, which is less than path greater than, and then a closing path tag, which is less than / path greater than. And then inside the path, I'm going to set the attribute to D, and D is the definition of the path. And then, let's see, we're just going to do a stroke of black here. And for now, we'll do fill none, because the default fill is black. None, and the default stroke is none. All right, so let's see. I'm gonna go like the other ones. I'm gonna show you where 0, 0 is here. So we'll start at 0, 0. And to start there, actually you have to use the move command, capital M and then a point, and the comma is optional, but you need at least a space. And then I am going to draw a line, and I'm gonna draw a line over to the point 100, 0. So 100 for X, 0 for Y. And so you should see that line appear there. And then I'm going to move back to the point 0, 0, and then I'm going to line, in this case, vertically, so 0, 100. And so we should see the pieces of the X and Y axis in this system. And so that point right there is the point 50, 20, right? Yeah, 50, 20 up there. All right, so just for fun, I'm going to tweak this a little bit. Instead of moving and doing a line, I'm going to get rid of that. And I am going to arc down to that point at the bottom. And radius here, might as well choose a radius of 100 since I went from 0 to 100. And I'll do that for Y too. And I don't want to rotate the trace. And I want the, I think I want the small arc here. So what I'm going to try and do is just do a quarter circle sector in here and get back to this point down there. All right, so where was I? Down here. Okay, so no angle, small arc. I want to sweep clockwise, which is a 1, sorry. And then I want to end up at the point, let's see, X equals 0, Y equals 100. Okay, did I do that right? Ooh, cool, I got it right that time. And then there's a bunch of ways to get back to where I started. There's a quick command called Z, and Z just says, hey, go back to where you started. And then just for fun, let's change a couple things. Let's add a fill here of red. And you can see the way SVG is layered. And, oh, interesting, there must be, that's bizarre. Oh, okay, yeah, it's covering it up. And then the text is on top of it because the text appears later, right? But notice you can't see any of those other arcs. So I could tweak this a little more by putting in a fill opacity, so fill-opacity, and set that to something. 1 means you can't see through it, which is what I have now. 0 means it's totally see-through, which means I won't see any red. And so I could put something in the middle, like 0.5 for 50%. And so then it's partially see-through. All right, so this was an orientation to the basic idea of paths using arcs and lines. One thing I didn't go over, which I might do in another one, is for each of these commands, L and A, there's a lowercase version, which instead of using absolute coordinates, uses relative coordinates, so like a dy dx kind of thing, which gives you a whole new way to think about this stuff. All right, one final note, and I'll put this in the description. Usually when I make projects like this, I have a repository for them online that sometimes I'll have collaborators, and other times I just want to share my code. So I have this stuff in Bitbucket, and so if you wanted to grab the whole slideshow and all of the samples and graphics that I have in there to see how I set it up, if you're into web design stuff, then I'm gonna make that link available in the description below. All right, that's it for now. Take care. I'll catch you in the near future. If I can figure out how to get out of here. Let's see, there we go. Bye-bye.